endurance. And really what it says to all of us is endurance is worth it. Whatever we have to face in the moment. Well, there was a line in the movie that says, if I can take it, I can make it. If I can take all that the devil hurls at me, his fiery darts, then I can make it to the other side. Okay? But first we have to take it in order to make it, okay? And be willing to take it. All right. Well, as I mentioned a little while ago, I'm going to revisit this series of messages dealing with the New Covenant. The New Covenant. We've all heard the term New Covenant, and it's tossed around a lot. But one day back in 1998, I thought, well, what is new of the New Covenant? Okay, what is the new part? So I dove into it and decided to make a series of messages out of it. And I'd like for us to look at first a couple of opening passages to start with here. Hebrews 12. Let's go to Hebrews 12. And then we're going to go into the Gospels, Matthew 9. So I'm going to turn to Matthew 9 here first. Matthew 9, verse 14. And since I have Hebrews printed out in my Bible, I'll just read it when we get there. Hebrews 12:24. Hebrews 12:24. In fact, if you want to just, I can just read this if you like. The new of the New Covenant, and the first subtitle is Jesus introduces new things. So we talk about the New Covenant. Jesus is going to, as he's gathered his disciples together, he's going to introduce them to new things. So here in Hebrews 12:24 we read, and to Jesus the mediator of the new covenant, and to the blood of sprinkling that speaketh better things than that of Abel. Now over here in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 9, I'll read this. It's 9:14 through 17. Then came to him the disciples of John, saying, why do we and the Pharisees fast oft, but thy disciples fast not? And Jesus said to them, can the children of the bride chamber mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? But the days will come when the bridegroom shall be taken from them, and then shall they fast. No man putteth a piece of new cloth unto an old garment, for that which is put in to fill it up taketh from the garment, and the rent is made worse. Neither do men put new wine into old bottles, else the bottles break, and the wine runneth out, and the bottles perish. But they put new wine into new bottles, and both are preserved. And so, in answering their question as to the differences between the Pharisees and such, and what Jesus demanded of his disciples, he used the illustration of wine bottles, wineskins. They're according to wineskins. And so he said, I'm going to be introducing new things in my ministry. Most people have heard of the New Covenant. In fact, our Bibles are divided into, kids, you know how our Bibles are divided? Two major areas of our Bible. The what?
New Testament and Old Testament.
The New Testament and the Old Testament. Very good. And another word for testament would be covenant. Okay? The Old Covenant and the New Covenant. So many people are familiar with that. That's Bible 101. But it's the things that go along with that concept of newness that a lot of people it's overlooked. In other words, they haven't the foggiest, or they have a portion of an idea. But we're going to look at these things over the next few weeks as to what that newness means. Jesus came to Israel, of course, as their promised Messiah. And as I said, he started out to introduce new things. Not just the same old, same old. How could he upgrade something? How could he make the necessary changes if it was just going to be the same old thing? Okay? Well, it couldn't be. And it never was determined to be just the same old thing. He described it as putting new wine into new wine bottles. Okay? And so one of the things that we're going to talk about is, well, over the course is, what was new about the New Covenant? Now, I've got this message broken into 4 parts. Today, Jesus introduces new things. The second segment will be Jesus makes a new covenant. The third one will be the new man. How many have heard of the new man? New man, okay. And the fourth one, Jesus promises to make all things new. And so, if you thought that he made new things the first time around, just wait till he returns. Amen? That's when things really are going to go into overdrive. And so, you would call it, in terms of techno terms, Andrew likes that techno terms. In terms of techno terms, okay, it's going to be Earth 2.0. Really, it'll be what? Actually, it'll be 3.0, won't it? When you think about it. It'll be Earth 3.0. We're on Earth 2.0. Right? We are on Earth 2.0, okay? So it's going to be Earth 3.0 when Jesus returns. Now, when we look at the expression New Covenant, we understand what covenant means. We'll get there in a minute, but we have to focus on the word new itself. It's New Covenant, okay? And so let's look at the word new itself. To describe the New Covenant, we find there's two words used for new. Okay, the first one is kainos. Anyone ever hear of kainos? Kainos? No? Okay. Well, it means new in quality. And you ladies will like this. It means more shiny. Okay? Glitter. Okay? Okay? Sister Vicky's shaking her head like, I can't believe that you're saying that. It's shiny. It's more shiny. It's new in quality. Okay? But there's another word that describes New Covenant. New in time. In other words, more recent. Okay? And so we use the word new in this capacity. I have something that's new. It's brand new. It's shiny. There's no dents or scratches. And I have something new to me. It's new in time. Okay, it's recently made. Okay? It's not something made a long time ago. It's more recent. So let's look at these words as we go along. Now, some of this I'm going to read, just short snippets I'm going to actually read. So here's this part I want to read. The New Covenant is described as something new, unscratched, undented, when compared with the worn-out, scratched, and dented, obsolete, powerless Mosaic covenant. So when we talk about something new, he's going to come in with something undented, unscratched, unblemished, untarnished. Okay? Something powerful, something new. Now here's some examples. Let's look at some examples of this. In Matthew's Gospel we read, for this is, and by the way, this is the word kainos. So this is new in terms of shininess, okay, quality. For this is my blood of the kainos testament. So as he issued the Lord's Supper, he said, this is my blood of the kainos, of the better quality covenant, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. But I say unto you, I will not drink henceforth of this fruit of the vine, until that day when I drink it new, kainos, in better times. Okay? The idea of quality. So when I drink it, kainos, when I drink it in better times than these, with you in my Father's kingdom. Okay? So you're getting a sense of kainos. It's better quality. Better quality. After the same manner, also he took the cup when he had supped, saying, this cup is the new, the kainos, more efficacious testament in my blood. Okay, than the blood of bulls and goats. This is the new, the kainos covenant in my blood. This you do as often as you drink it in remembrance of me. Who also hath made us able ministers of the new, the kainos, the quality enriched testament, not of the letter, but of the Spirit. For the letter killeth, but the Spirit giveth light. So the quality is there impacted into this new, or the newness of this covenant. It's a quality enriched covenant. It doesn't hold us down. It doesn't bond us down. It doesn't keep us in bondage. It's so new and improved in that regard. And then back to Hebrews. For finding fault with them, he saith, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, when I will make anew a kainos, an upgraded covenant, with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. And that he saith, a new covenant he hath made the first old. Now that which decayeth and waxes old is ready to vanish away. So I'm going to upgrade the covenant, in the terms of the covenant. And for this cause he is the mediator of the kainos, more efficacious testament, by means of death for the redemption of the transgressions that were under the first testament, they which are called might receive the promise of eternal inheritance. So there are some examples then of what was behind the new covenant was quality. Better in terms of quality for our benefit. Okay? Of course, to meet the demands of God. But for our benefit, he was upgrading this. He was improving it, moving it forward. And of course, he had in mind now, the Jews didn't know this, but what he had in mind, of course, was to bring in a whole family of people who would not have been under the law. And so you have to upgrade this thing in order to incorporate a whole bunch of people that the law was never meant for. Okay? So we're going to have to make some changes here. Because the law, such as it was only meant for Israel, only for the Jews. If in your mind you're going to bring in Gentiles, you can't now bring them under that law. So you have to change the law. Okay? And if you're going to deliver the Jews who were under the law, who couldn't keep it, if you're going to redeem them and deliver them from it, again, you have to make these changes. It can't be the same old, same old. Hence, new wine in new wine bottles. Okay? So that's what he said. Look, this is what I'm coming to do. So he announced his plan. He announced his purpose, and then he set out to do it. Okay? Kind of like our president 6 years ago announced what he was going to do, and then he's set out to do it. Okay? To fundamentally transform America. I think he's on track for that, don't you? Okay? So he's basically doing what he told voters that he would be doing. He just didn't have them read the fine print. That's the problem. Okay? There was no fine print to read. All right, now let's move along to our next word, naos. Naos is also translated new. And again, let me read this. Naos, the new covenant. Definition, new with respect to time. Something more recent. Not long ago. As far as the time frame is concerned, the new covenant is more recent in existence as compared with the 2,000-year-old Mosaic covenant. Okay? So it's more recent. It's fresh. So not only is it upgraded in quality, it's shiny, it's fresh in terms of time. It's more recent. So let's look at some scriptures with that example. And to Jesus, the mediator of the Naos covenant, the more recent covenant, and to the blood of sprinkling that speaketh better things than of Abel. So now he's looking at the new covenant from a different angle. It's more recent. It's newer in time. Well, of course, Jesus brought it. So, Moses brought the first covenant. Jesus now brings the new covenant. Okay? So it's new in terms of more recent. I read this one already. Okay, let me skip that part because I read that already. But let's look at Matthew chapter 5. Let's go to Matthew chapter 5 and look at an example of what that newness would entail. Matthew 5, let's look at verse 22. Let's pick up verse 21. You have heard that it was said by them of old time. Okay, so longer ago, you have heard that it was said by them of old time, thou shalt not kill, and whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. But I say unto you, in other words, I'm saying unto you now, in more recent time, that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Raka, shall be in danger of the council. But whosoever shall say, thou fool, shall be in danger of hellfire, or Gehenna. Therefore, if thou bring thy gift to the altar, and there rememberest that thy brother hath aught against thee, leave there thy gift before the altar, and go thy way. First, be reconciled to thy brother, and then come and offer thy gift. Agree with thine adversary quickly, while thou art in the way with him, lest at any time the adversary deliver thee up to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer, and thou be cast into prison. And so, what he's doing is he's saying, you've heard in old times, but now under the new wineskins and the new wine that I'm going to pour into them, I say unto you now more recently, okay, this is how you are to behave. Okay, so he's upgrading their behavior. Keep in mind, this is part of the what? This is part of the Sermon on the Mount, isn't it? Okay, where he separated his disciples. And he said, look, I know what you've been taught by the rabbis. You've been taught the old school. Okay, nothing wrong with that in so much as you were commanded to learn it. You were commanded to live it, to practice it. So that's okay. But I want to bring you up, as it were, up higher, to a higher plane of understanding of what that law was saying that most missed. Okay? So he took them up on that mountain and taught them the specifics and the details and the spirit behind that law. So he wanted to show them a different side of that law that was totally missed. So what he's saying is, we're going to now focus in my more recent or fresh words about the law. We're going to focus on attitude, not just the deed itself, but what drives the deed, what pushes the deed, okay, the good work. What is behind it? Is it as the Pharisees who would go in front of everybody and they would offer their alms to the poor in front of everybody? They would sound a horn first to announce that this is what they were going to do, so that the deed was swallowed up in the announcement of the deed. Okay? So he says, no, I'm going to pour new wine into new wine bottles. So we're going to focus on the attitude behind it. Not like the Pharisees who sought the upper seats, the higher seats, the more notable chief seats. Okay? Well, they had to sit somewhere. Yes, but their attitude is what drove them to do this. And so he says, so the new covenant is going to focus on attitude behind the service. Now he, of course, was going to have them maintain service and works, but he wanted to stop them at the gate and say, you know about the works. We don't have to, review the works. But where there is a disconnect between God and the Pharisees is the attitude, the heart, and the work. So let's get one thing straight. Attitude is everything. Attitude must step out in front of you before the work. Attitude must be there on board first before the work. Or the work is just a vain work in the eyes of God. It's no more than the Pharisees. And what did Jesus say? I think it's also in Matthew 5. I don't see it right here, but somewhere in Matthew 5, I think, it's unless your righteous deeds exceed that of the Pharisees, you shall in no wise enter into the kingdom. Is that right? Something on that note. So he said, look, so I'm here to instruct you of the details, the particulars, and those things that the Pharisees missed because of their pride. So attitude was everything.
Verse 20.
Verse 5:20? Yeah, thank you. For I say unto you that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. Okay? And then I have a penciled note there, a state of unbelief, John 9:39 through 41. So they had to come out of that state of unbelief as to who Jesus was. They were locked in on he was not the Messiah. So they had to break that attitude toward him. So here we have in Matthew 13:44. He's introducing new things concerning the kingdom. The kingdom, of course, the concept of the kingdom, the anticipation of the kingdom was on their hearts and minds as Jewish people under Roman rule at the time. And in 13, we'll start at verse 44. 44. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a treasure hidden in a field, the which when a man hath found, he hideth, and for joy thereof goeth and selleth all that he hath, and buyeth the field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant man seeking goodly pearls, who when he had found one pearl of great price, went and sold all that he had, and bought it. And so he goes on to describe the kingdom with these parable teachings. And you mentioned something about a parable this morning. I jotted it down. What was it? It was, I wrote it in my notes.
Sower.
Yeah, you mentioned something. I've never heard it that way. Anyway, there were stories, of course, to illustrate a truth. I want to impact you with a spiritual truth, but I have to wrap it in a story so that so that you'll connect with it. And of course, these are timeless. They reach it to all generations. The story about vineyards and such. I mean, the effectiveness doesn't go away. You can all picture. That's what it was. So that we can conjure. Use the word conjure. So we can conjure up an image. And so it's not something just abstract out there. He uses these so we can conjure an image and lock in on it. And I understand the Hebrew language was not abstract, but was concrete. In other words, they had to lock in on something tangible in order for them to grasp it. Okay, and so that's what we're talking about here. So he introduces new things, even on the kingdom, okay, using these parables, these stories, with things of everyday life for them to grab onto. Okay, they only knew certain elements or aspects of the kingdom, that which was taught by the rabbis. But now he says, I'm going to introduce you to a new level here. I'm taking you to a new level. And the level begins in the basement, okay? And that would be your heart, okay? It's got to be I'm going to take you up on the elevator. I'm going to take you up to the top floor here. Okay? So by the time I'm done, and it won't all happen at once, and it didn't happen at once, but by the time he was done, by the time he was resurrected, sent the Holy Spirit back, and then I'll give it even more time of their service, they would be well-polished disciples, ready to die for Jesus. Okay? But he's getting them in the rough. He's getting them as just raw, fishermen type people who only had a certain level of status quo teaching. And so he knew where he wanted to take them, but he's beginning with them here. And he knew that if he didn't reach their hearts, if he couldn't penetrate the heart and get them on board with an attitude adjustment, then what good would it be for them to just keep growing in knowledge and climbing to up the elevator in knowledge when you left your heart way down there? Okay, you would be a very intelligent Pharisee, okay, and there was plenty of those to go around. So he didn't want to just reproduce another group of Pharisees. Okay, so you got to stop and check. I'm dealing with your hearts, men. Okay, so that's what that was all about. So that's what Jesus came to do, introducing them to the introduction to the things of the covenant, which were new. We're going to also talk about in the third segment about the new man. Again, we're touching on the heart. This is something that the New Testament, Paul especially, really focused on, was the heart. Okay, because the external, it's easy to go through the ropes, or to go through the motions. That's easy. Once you learn, church life, right? It's easy to do what people expect. You get into that rhythm, okay? And we come, we carry our Bibles, and we act like Christians. And that's all well and good. Well, not acting like Christians, but anyway, if the heart is not there, then we can only put up that facade for so long. It'll begin to crumble under the weight of obligation. It just won't feel sincere. We'll begin to let go of it because it'll be too much for us to want to handle. Okay? Put up with it for a while. Okay, we've had people like that who've played the game for a while, but the resistance, the flesh took over, and they just couldn't hold up any longer. Not that they didn't have a chance to repair the damages along the way. Sure, we all can do that. The Bible's all about repair, second chance. That's what it's all about. Okay, so even the apostles, as he introduced these things to them, he gave them room for mistakes. Did he not? he gave them some cushion to learn it, because he knew that he was going beyond what they were accustomed to hearing, and that he was not just another rabbi. And it was noted by the public that his teachings were different than the rabbis. And so he was aware of this. So he knew that it would take time to seep in. He knew it would take time to begin to gel. Okay? And that's why he didn't overburden them with everything at once. He layered it in, and then he stopped at a certain point, went to the cross, and said, now the rest of it we'll deal with through the Spirit in your minds. Okay? And so that's what Hebrews talks about again, of I will put the laws in their hearts, and I will write them in their minds, and I'll write them in their hearts. Okay? As far as the new covenant goes. So there's our introduction this morning to Jesus introduces new things. He started where he felt he needed to start with this new covenant. And so next week we'll move on to our next lesson. So shall we stand this morning?